Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister and Minister for Infrastructure Development, Public Utilities, Civil Aviation and Transportation, Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, Attorney General and Minister for Legal Affairs, Labor and Consumer Affairs, Mr. Nazim Burke, Chairman of Grenada's Hydrocarbon Technical Working Group, members of the Ministry of Infrastructure Technical Working Group, members of the media, Grenadians listening at home and in the diaspora. Good morning and welcome to this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. Today's press conference was called to address a critical matter of national importance. Today, the Honorable Prime Minister will deliver opening statements regarding the official termination of the development license and production agreement with the Global Petroleum Group, GPG. Following the Prime Minister's remarks, the floor will be opened exclusively for questions related to this specific topic. To ensure that everyone has an opportunity to participate, we'd like the conversation to remain focused. We kindly ask members of the media to keep their questions concise and directly tied to today's announcement. Any queries outside of today's topic can be addressed at the end of today's press conference. I now invite Prime Minister the Honorable Dickon Mitchell to address the nation in his opening remarks. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Good morning to members of the media who are present and who may be online. And good morning to the citizens of Grenada. Thank you for being here this morning and for joining me at this special press conference. Before I begin, I wish to recognize two of my colleagues who are with me this morning. I recognize the Honorable Attorney General, Claudette Joseph, and Mr. Nazim Burke, Victor Nazim Burke, the head of Grenada's Technical Working Group. That is specifically charged with matters relating to Grenada's oil and gas. Citizens, I speak with you today on a matter of national importance. One that concerns our natural resources, our patrimony, and the duty of your government to act at all times in the best interests of the citizens of Grenada. It is a matter that every citizen of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique deserves to understand fully and in plain terms. And so today, I am speaking plainly with you. When you elected this government, you voted for change, for transformation that can be felt, and for a country built on fairness, transparency, and accountability. What I say next is about honoring that mandate. The promise and the reality of our oil and gas. In 2008, our nation granted a company known as Global Petroleum Group, or GPG, a license over 11 offshore blocks to explore our waters for oil and gas. And that is often called the exploration license. 5 years later, in 2013, GPG was also granted a development license and signed a production sharing agreement, what hereafter I will refer to as the Development License and Production Sharing Agreement, over 4 of those 11 blocks. The Development License and Production Sharing Agreement provided the legal permission and the guidelines to actually bring that oil and gas out of our waters and to share the proceeds with our nation. Grenadians were told that beneath our waters lay the foundation of a new and prosperous era, that oil and gas would bring jobs, revenue, and a better life for our families. Citizens, that was 18 years ago. And so we now must ask ourselves, where is the oil and gas production? Where are the jobs? And where is the revenue that was promised to our people? The simple answer is that 18 years later, there is no production, there are no jobs, and there are no revenue to the state of Grenada. And so, what is the reality? When this government assumed office in 2022, we knew that there were concerns about this arrangement with GPG. In fact, independent legal and industry experts had cautioned as far back as 2007 and in 2012 that these arrangements were likely to be unsuccessful, but the cautions were in fact unheeded. So we did what every responsible government would do. We sought the records, we sought the development plans, we examined carefully, thoughtfully, and deliberately whether GPG had lived up to its obligations. What we found was deeply troubling, and in prior public statements, I made reference to this. We inherited minimal records and no proper handover of Grenada's files or obligations on this matter. Upon closer examination, we found a company that had failed in several material respects to meet its obligations to our country. GPG did not complete the minimum work it committed to do. GPG did not produce a development plan that met the standard of the agreement or the standard that the international oil and gas industry expects. And importantly, GPG could not show that it had the funds or the money in hand to carry out the work it kept promising to do. Now, GPG has spoken publicly about the scale of its investment in this project, while by its own accounting, continuing to seek outside partners to help fund it. But under the terms it signed with the government of Grenada, GPG was required to report its expenditure to the government every month. It never did so. Without those reports, this government is not in a position to confirm any figure that GPG has put forward, and we will not repeat numbers that we cannot ourselves verify. A company that will not account for what it says it has spent certainly cannot be trusted that it will spend what it proposes to spend. Many will ask, why are we taking the decisions we are taking now? And I will answer this directly. We chose not to act in haste. In 2022, the government established a technical working group made up of capable Grenadians, led by the former Minister for Finance, Mr. Victor Nazim-Burke. The technical working group had a clear mandate to assess the oil and gas potential of our waters and to see that any development coming out of our oil and gas industry benefits the citizens and the people of Grenada. Since 2023, that technical working group has engaged directly with GPG. We requested the updated development plans and the technical documentation necessary to assess whether this project could ever deliver for our country. We extended every reasonable opportunity. Grenada notified GPG both formally of every breach of the agreement we found. We gave them the opportunity to respond in writing and in person. GPG has failed to remedy those breaches. And so, citizens of Grenada, the decision that this government has taken after 18 years without any production, without any accountability, and without any results is to bring this arrangement to an end. I will be precise as to what this means. First, on the 29th of April 2026, the government terminated a related 2026 Memorandum of Understanding that had reserved 7 further offshore blocks for GPG. Those 7 blocks which were reserved on the condition that GPG will perform and bring production under the first arrangement. Of course, that condition has never been met. I am notifying the public that effective 1st August 2026, the government has terminated the development license and the production sharing agreement itself with GPG. I want to make this clear. this government takes no satisfaction in doing this. It is a difficult decision, but it is a necessary one. And it is not one that we've made suddenly. As I've said, we have painstakingly gone over this matter over the last several years. Grenada waited, Grenada engaged, Grenada reviewed, and Grenada is now acting responsibly. We do not take this decision lightly, but leadership is not the avoidance of difficult choices. It is the willingness to make them. My duty as the Prime Minister of this country, and the duty of your government, is to act at all times in the best interests of the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and not to any agreement signed almost 2 decades ago that has failed our nation. I understand that there may be others who will seek to misrepresent what this decision means. Some may even suggest that by terminating it, Grenada is unwelcoming to investment. The opposite is true. We are a nation that believes in the sanctity of contracts and in honoring our word. But those who partner with us must also honor their word. The principle is a mutual one. And therefore, it carries a duty to act firmly and lawfully when a company or a partner fails to honor what it signed and stands in the way of this country's development. That is what our technical working group exists to do, to protect Grenada's interests and, importantly, to build the environment that credible investors are looking for. So we are not closing the door to investment. To the contrary, we are insisting that investment be built on transparency, on accountability, and on the genuine benefit to our people. So we are, in fact, opening the door to credible investors. Now, in response to our action, we are sure that you may hear other accounts, including from those with much to gain from promoting other accounts. GPG has already publicly claimed that it has had no communication with this government. That is simply false. And the record, which the technical working group will publish, will demonstrate the falsity of that statement. I ask that all of us weigh every account against the record. And the record is plain, straightforward, and simple. After 18 years, no production, no accountability, no jobs, no revenue for the government and people of Grenada. Those facts speak for themselves. So citizens, this is a moment for unity, and I call on all Grenadians, including the opposition parties in Parliament, wherever they may stand politically, to come together on this issue as we move our economy and our country forward. Given the importance of this matter, I will, through the offices of the presiding officers, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, and through the Clerk of Parliament, request a special joint briefing for the entire Parliament so that the technical working group can brief the full Parliament on its work to date, the actions it has recommended to the Cabinet of Grenada, and our proposed work plan, including next steps and budgetary implications for the country. I'm mindful that it was a previous administration that entered into this arrangement 18 years ago. But I do not believe that any Grenadian on either side of the political aisle could stand in support of a company that has refused for 18 years to be accountable to the Grenadian people. And therefore, on this issue, I expect that we will stand as one. As we look forward, we cannot undo the past, but we certainly can refuse to repeat it. This decision is about closing a chapter of unfulfilled promises and beginning one founded on transparency, accountability, and respect for the people of this nation. Our natural resources are the patrimony of every Grenadian, of our children, and of generations not yet born. Those resources must be managed openly, honestly, and for the benefit of our people. And so it is only by coming together across our trial and state that we will protect what is ours and build a future that we have chosen. So the wait is over. the work now begins. That is the task before us. Grenada deserves better. We deserve better partners, better agreements, better relationships, and importantly, actual results. 18 years is what it takes for the law in Grenada to recognize a citizen as an adult. That's an entire generation. 18 years is long enough. Today, that chapter ends and Grenada moves forward. I wish to publicly thank the Honorable Attorney General and the team at the Ministry of Legal Affairs for the work that they've done on this matter, and to thank the members of the Technical Working Group and the experts who assist the Technical Working Group led by Mr. Nazim Burke for the work that they've done on this matter to date. Thank you. I am happy to take your questions. My only request is that you direct all of your questions to me, and when I'm finished, if you have any questions for the Honorable Attorney General, she will then take your questions, and if you have any questions to Mr. Burke on this matter, then he would take the questions. Thank you. I should perhaps also make reference to the fact that ahead of this press conference, a release was in fact put out by the government of Grenada, and in that release, you'd perhaps find even more technical and detailed information about the work of the Technical Working Group and this matter. So if necessary, you can also refer to that document. Thank you. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Roxanne Thompson, representing Now Grenada. My question is, in your press release on Monday, and you also mentioned this, the MOU was terminated on April 29th. What was the Petroleum Group's response to the termination, and why wasn't the termination announced 3 months ago when it happened?
Right. So the termination is simply in relation to the reservation agreement. The reservation agreement was simply an agreement that says in the event you are successful at the main agreement, there's a possibility that you can get a right to explore and then have a production and development agreement for these additional blocks. So in the grand scheme of things, the reservation agreement, if I may put it so, is the least important of the documents. And we wanted to be in a position where we actually gave GPG the opportunity to later on respond to the more substantive issues. That is part of the reason why we did not yet publicly indicate that the reservation agreement had been terminated, because we recognize the main agreement, the development license and production sharing agreement, was in fact the crucial agreement. And because of the processes that have to be followed before you can terminate, there are pre-notices and so on that need to be issued, which could determine whether you terminate or not. And therefore we wanted to make sure that process was followed before we publicly said anything. I cannot speak to whether there's been any specific response on the GPG in relation to the reservation agreement. If necessary, I could ask the Attorney General or Mr. Burke to perhaps make a note of it and answer it when they come to the podium. Sorry, was that the only question for you?
No.
No, well, you can go ahead and then, yes.
In light of the WRB Grenlec arbitration, what is government's legal defense, and is the government protected from potential arbitration in this case?
Well, I would let the Attorney General speak to the technical aspects of this, but I would simply say this. Arbitration is in fact a dispute settlement mechanism, so you don't need, in a sense, protection from the dispute resolution mechanism. It exists so that in the event there is a dispute, you know what the process is to try and resolve the dispute. But I want to emphasize, as I've said, we did not act in haste. We would have clearly set out what we viewed are the breaches of the agreement. We would have given formal notice of that and given GPG the opportunity to respond and to remedy those breaches. That has not happened, and hence the reason why we've taken the decision that we've taken today.
And GPG has given the cabinet a 7-day ultimatum. Will the government engage in talks or sit down with them prior to Juve morning?
I will put it this way. Ultimatums are things that don't really mean much, I think, in the context of this matter. Whenever you have termination of an agreement, excuse me, of this kind, we expect that there will be a response. We expect that Counsel for the State of Grenada will advise us on to how to treat with it. But I will always say this: we are always open to speaking. We are always open to meeting. In fact, if you would have paid attention to what I said, we've given GPG several opportunities to repeatedly meet with us. But I think it's important to point out that the government of Grenada has to be respected by persons who contract with the government of Grenada and partner with the citizens of Grenada. So if the only time alacrity and quick responses matter is when you get a termination notice, that should tell you something about the mindset. So no, we have no difficulty in continuing engaging, but certainly we will be guided by legal counsel on the matter. Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, Hamlet Mark, by the way, Caribou with News, WPG10.
Good to see you, Hamlet.
In the press service. And a letter dated yesterday, addressed to you from GPG, I don't know if you've seen it. They've quoted some...
Well, I actually haven't seen it, but I'm aware it's been sent.
Okay. They quoted an article 30 and 27 of the PSA that says it remains in force pending final outcome of any arbitration. Mm-hmm. You're aware of that article, and is that a correct interpretation? Well,
no, I mean, I'm not giving myself my own counsel. Okay. Right? So notwithstanding that my training is that of law, I choose not to advise myself as the Prime Minister of Grenada. So I think GPG obviously will advance whatever cases they wish to advance. The government of Grenada will advance whatever cases they wish to advance. And if their interpretation matters, that obviously will take place throughout whatever dispute resolution mechanism that takes place. But the point I wish to make, and I think that's important, you know, if from a common sense perspective, GPG had the ability to do what it contracted to do, we wouldn't be here. That's the reality. And it's been 18 years. And it's been 4 years since this administration has been in office, and there are other administrations. And if they had the ability to do that which they claim they have the ability to do, I can tell you certainly we would not be here. As I said, this is not something we take pleasure in doing. To the contrary, we want to see oil and gas flowing out of our territory. We want to see revenues flowing into the coffers of the government of people. We want to see money flowing into the hands of our citizens. That is not happening. That's the reality, and we can't escape that.
But given this development, and of course, they hoping to challenge, I guess, will that put a damper on any plans, like, I mean, any potential engagement people might be careful?
We assess the situation as to the contrary. There's been no credible industry player who's wanted to treat with Grenada because of the uncertainty surrounding the situation. And I would dare say credibility attracts credibility.
Okay.
Good morning, Donisha Alexander, WFM News Department. Have there been any arrangements effective with the licensing being terminated? Any arrangements to explore other options as yet?
When you say other options, do you mean other partners?
Other partners, yes.
Right, so I'll ask Mr. Book to speak to the approach we will take in the future to how we go about seeking other partners. It will be dramatically different and very transparent compared to the opaque, unclear, no one knows how GPG got this contract arrangement. We will clearly set out the process by which we will. But yes, we are seeking to engage in a process that will lead us to having other persons get exploration, development, and production sharing licenses. Yes.
So, wait another 18 years?
No, no, that much I can assure you of. Yes, as you would say, God is willing. That much I can assure you of. Yes.
Good morning, Deidre Seeley, GBN News. So in relation to some of the points raised by my colleagues, could you just maybe go into what are some of the legal and financial risks of this? Because it seems that GPG is indicating that it will proceed with action, legal action.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, that's expected. We didn't expect that on termination of the agreement that GPG would not seek to pursue this matter legally. That's not a reason for not terminating it. In fact, the way agreements are written, we expect that there will be disputes, misunderstandings, and outright termination. Because if you contract with someone who doesn't have the capacity to do that which they contracted to do, for whatever reason, and you simply allow them to do nothing, then you too are failing in your duty to deliver on that which you've contracted. So in our country's case, we expect that there will be litigation or arbitration or any dispute mechanism that is set out in the contract. We will abide by these, as I said, because we honor what we sign. The dispute mechanism will take its course, and when that is, however it turns out, we are fairly confident that we've taken the right decision legally, but more importantly for the benefit of the people of Grenada, and we will abide by and stand by those decisions, by whatever rulings also that comes out of the arbitration.
Mr. That industry conference you attended in Suriname
yes.
a couple of weeks ago, were there any interest coming out of that you can speak to?
Right. Well, I would have the Mr. Buck speak to the more specifics over this, the entities that we've been speaking to, those who've expressed interest in Grenada's oil and gas industry. So you'll have detailed information from him in relation to that. Okay. All right. Are there any more questions for me?
There's one online.
Yes.
There's a question online from our Titus.
Right. So can we have the question? Thank you.
I wanted to ask, what did the technical team discover about Nutmeg 2 that contradicted the petroleum group's claim? What did their team discover that contradicted the petroleum group's claim?
All right. Well, what I suggest, as I said, if you have questions specific for Mr. Buck, I will bring him to the podium.
Oh.
What I don't want is to sit down and get up again.
All right.
So if there are no other questions for me, then I obviously would thank you. Is the question from Mr. Titus directed at me, or do you have it? How do we know? All right. So then if there are no further questions for me, I will perhaps ask Mr. Buck to take any questions that you may have, and then if you have any other legal questions for the Attorney General, we can take them. Thank you. Mr. Buck. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
So yes, my question was, what did the technical team discover that contradicted the petroleum group's claims?
You're asking what
did your team discover
that contradicts what they're saying?
Yeah.
Well, they're saying many things, yeah? One of the things that they're saying is that we didn't communicate with them at all. We didn't write to them at all. That they wrote all these letters and nobody responded. And that is just flat false, yeah? You have to perhaps understand a little bit of the context here. When this government came into office in 2022, as the Prime Minister said, information was not available, yeah? Starting in June of 2023, the GPG started writing a number of letters. In fact, June, July, August, September, they wrote a whole slew of letters to the Prime Minister saying, we're ready to invest $350 million US. We have nobody to talk to. Well, Prime Minister met with them shortly after that, September 27, Prime Minister. I don't know if you remember that. As soon as he got this spate of letters, and they were coming like every week apart. So Prime Minister set up a meeting with them for the end of September of 2023, met with them, explained to them, we are quite willing to work. We just don't have a lot of the information, yeah? And asked them to provide some of the information, which they said they would, and they never did, you see? So the truth is, if you invest, you have a big investment, hundreds of millions of dollars, you see. A new person is in the house, they say to you, look, I haven't seen the agreement. Can you share the agreement with me? Let's work, you give me a copy of the agreement so we can start working. And then you say, well, I'm not providing you that agreement because government is continuous and you're supposed to have the documents. Now, if you really want to realize on your investment, right, then you would share the documents and we start working together. So this idea that the government was not responding to them is simply not true, yeah? Starting, as I said, in September, the Prime Minister met with them. We then went on a search for documents inside of Grenada and outside of Grenada, yeah? The first thing we got was a part of the production sharing agreement from a friend of mine in Trinidad, The documents were simply not available. So it took us almost a year to get these agreements. Yeah, there was a development license agreement or license. There was a PSA, production sharing agreement. There was a participation agreement, this in which the government agreed with GPG that it will share. It will take 30% of the stake in the investment. GPG will put all the monies up front, and then they will recover their money, and government will have a 30% stake in the profits. There was this block reservation agreement that the Prime Minister was speaking about, which essentially said, we have 7 blocks, we have 11 blocks, but we're going to get a development license on 4 of them, and the other 7, you're going to give us a block reservation agreement where you agree that you won't give it to anybody else while we are working on the 4. But they've never worked on the 4. So the 7 were just sitting there, yeah? And then you had this, what they're calling a monetization agreement, where they entered into some arrangement, which we have not seen the document itself, but we've seen documents that make reference to it, that they would give the government monies up front, which they will collect back once we start producing oil. And in that regard, they claim that they gave the government $19 million US. We have not seen, as I said, the document, but we've seen many references to that $19 million being paid out. So in answer to your question, the first thing that is not true is that they simply did not, it is not true that we did not reply to them.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Audio.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes, and this question is directed to Mr. Burke, and that has to do with GPG's claim that all they were waiting on from the government of Grenada was for the regulatory infrastructure to be set up in order to begin exploration. They're claiming that the government of Grenada refused to provide the necessary regulatory infrastructure that would enable them to begin the exploration process. So can you speak to that specific claim that GPG is making? And can you ascertain why, can you articulate to the nation why, or if that regulatory framework was in fact discussed with all of their deliberations with GPG?
Yes, I can. The first thing that happens is just in terms of sequence. An oil company comes in, it signs an agreement, it agrees, it gets a license to explore, to see whether or not we have any potential. If they explore and they see some potential, then they do an appraisal. If the appraisal says that it's commercially viable, then they do a development plan, a plan that says, this is how we propose to develop the oil that we found. The government, of course, has to approve that plan. Yes? And then the government will sign a production sharing agreement as to how the profits and so are going to be shared. That's the sequence. So we were shocked to realize, first of all, that a development license was granted even before a well was dug. A development license, so you're agreeing to develop something that you don't even know exists. Yeah? A development license was granted even before a well was dug. A production sharing agreement was signed even before a well was dug. Nonetheless, they were there. That agreement, though, said that GPG, well, let me say, the production sharing agreement makes provisions for an advisory committee to be set up. That committee will be made up of 3 members from the government side, 3 members from the GPG side. And this body was charged with the responsibility to supervise the petroleum operations. That's what the language says. Supervise the petroleum operations, and also to review and approve the budget, the commerciality of anything that was being done. The agreement made provision that the development plan had to be approved by the advisory committee. It provided that the plan itself must contain all of the capital expenditure that was going to be put out in this plan, as well as the recurrent expenditure. It required that GPG will provide every year a work plan as to how it was going to implement this development plan on an annual basis. And each year, provide a budget for that associated with that particular work plan. It required the GPG to provide that development plan by the 31st of May of 2015, so that the advisory committee can look at it, discuss it, evaluate it, approve it, and then take it to the government for consideration and approval. On the 27th of May, 3 days before the deadline, they provided a document which every single person that has seen this document said that that's no development plan. It contained no financial information. It contained no budget to support it, no listing of capital expenditure, nothing. Yeah? And of course, the advisory committee never had a chance to look at that document. Yeah? So that there has never been a development plan developed and produced. The Prime Minister made it clear. We gave them repeated opportunities to say, look, give us a plan. Give us the plan. These are the elements that we believe that must be contained in the plan. Give us the plan. If you need help to prepare the plan, let's sit down and discuss it. No problems. Yeah? They refused. Yeah? Now, you can't say that the government refused to put a system in place for you to carry out your production when you have not even given the government a plan. So in answer to your question, Dr. Bob, the truth is we never got a development plan from the GPG, and when we pressed them on the development plan, they produced a work plan for 2025. That's the only thing we got. The work plan itself contains no financial information, no budget. And we said to them, well, look, you cannot give us a work plan for this year that says this is the work we are going to do to advance the development plan, but we do not have a development plan. So there can be no work plan that bears no relationship to a development plan because you don't have a development plan. Yeah? So in answer to your question, Dr. Bob, the truth is the GPG simply did not provide us with the kind of information that was required in respect of the plan. And that's only one aspect. It makes provisions, the agreements also, that it must show the government that it has the money to do the job. Up to now, no information has been provided of the financial capability of the GPG to embark on this project.
Just as a quick follow-up, Mr. Burke, because the GPG is claiming that, in fact, they conducted exploratory drilling at the Nutmeg Well. And they're asserting that there are explorable quantities there. So how does that go against the claim that you're saying that they have not provided evidence of the resources that are located at the Nutmeg Well?
I'm not sure I understand it.
But you never said what we said. We have never said, and certainly when I'm here this morning, Mr. Book has never said, Dr. Bob, that GPG has not provided evidence of the quantifiable resource in any well dug. Your question was about the regulatory environment, and he's responded to that. So if you're asking a separate question, you can ask a separate question, but you can't preface the question by saying either of us have said something that we've not said and that has not been asked.
Yes.
Yes, so that would be a follow-up to Mr. Burke's response to the last question. Perhaps I should have framed it that way.
So could you repeat your question then, please?
Yes, so the question is, the Global Petroleum Group is articulating the view that with respect to the Nutmeg Well, that they have found credible explorable quantities of hydrocarbon resources. So the question is, what conversations have you had with GPG with respect to those hydrocarbon resources located at that Nutmeg Well?
Well, one of the things that the agreement makes provisions for as well is that GPG must provide the government as a legal requirement with all of the records, all of the seismic information. If they do a seismic study, provide that. All of the well logs. If you drill a well, provide it. All of the data, all of the geophysical and geological data must be provided to the government, yeah? So that we cannot simply rely on what GPG says. The government is entitled, when somebody makes a claim that they've discovered something, the government is entitled to have its own independent experts evaluate that claim and make a determination based on it, yeah? So we have spoken with the GPG. The truth of the matter is they've refused to give us all the information, so we don't have it. They're saying that, but we don't have the information. We still have not seen the well logs. We still have not seen the well data. The GPG is saying that they drilled 2 wells, and all the evidence shows they drilled 1 well. All of the evidence. We can show it to you. The only well that was dug is the Nutmeg well. So where's the second well? And they were required to do 2 wells by 2017, 8 years ago. So in answer to your question, we have spoken with them, yes. We have requested the information. They have bluntly refused to provide it.
And just a final question from me, and that has to do with the overall concern as articulated by the Prime Minister a few years ago with respect to all of the hydrocarbon documentation, the oil and gas documentation that is alleged has gone missing. Where are we with that? What have you found? And what is still outstanding?
He's asking for an assessment of where are we with the incomplete file and what, if any, documents are outstanding. Well, I can answer part of that by simply saying Mr. Buck just told you some of the information we don't have. GPG has not provided us, for example, with the well drill logs. They have not actually provided us with any data that says or establishes their assertion that there are commercial quantities of hydrocarbons in Nutmeg 2. That's just a simple example of what we are talking about. So, and let me make this clear. The government is entitled, even based on this agreement, which industry experts will blink at, even based on this
that's the point.
Less than ideal agreement, we are entitled to the information. So we're not begging here or negotiating about the information. So if you have evidence, documentation that shows there are commercial quantities of oil and gas in a well that you have dug, and that oil and gas belongs to the state of Grenada, and you choose not to provide it to the government of Grenada, explain to me how you are going to develop, produce, and commercialize this oil and gas. And that is the reality. And I want to urge all of us as reporters to not just repeat what GPG claims, to do your own independent verification. The technical working group has had several open, transparent town hall and public engagements on this issue. Well, if GPG tells you it has commercial quantities of oil and gas in Nutmeg 2, why don't they give you the documents? Share it with you so you can confront us with it. Right? So we need to be careful about simply repeating allegations that GPG itself has made without, in fact, GPG even supplying you with anything to back that allegation. So I don't know that technically Mr. Book or I, but certainly not I, could sit here and tell you of every potential document that we are missing. Part of the problem is if a document exists and you don't know it exists, then I can't tell you it's missing.
That's correct.
And this is the problem with the lack of transparency that we encountered in this entire issue surrounding all of the agreements and the supporting documentation pertaining to this matter. So, again, GPG was afforded the opportunity since 2023 to provide us with all of the information that GPG had, whether or not their file was complete. And they've not done so. And so, yes, we've had to do our own searches internally at various government ministries. We have also engaged in third-party. I'll give an example. There is a company that the government of Grenada entered into an agreement with to do a seismic survey of Grenada's seabed. Do you know how we discovered this? Because someone pretending to be a permanent secretary in the government in one of the ministries in the government of Grenada, a permanent secretary who doesn't exist, a ministry which doesn't exist, wrote that company, saying to that company, we want you to share the seismic data that you have with us, and that I'm authorized by the government of Grenada to do so. That company felt something was suspect and reached out to the government. And in reaching out, that is how we discovered that the government of Grenada had entered into that contract for that company to engage in a seismic survey of Grenada. We actually did not even find a cabinet conclusion that supported the government of Grenada entered into that contract. It was simply a contract entered to, and based on what the documents we found, by the then minister authorizing this company to proceed with the seismic survey. The seismic survey took place. There was no actual formal written agreement for the seismic survey to be done. There was no agreement that spoke to how Grenada would benefit if the data was then licensed or sold to third parties. It was only under this technical working group that we were then in a position to actually formally enter into a contract with the seismic survey company. And I would put it this way. The company was already sub-licensing and selling that data to petroleum companies and generating revenue from it. And then actually told us they couldn't give us our share because we don't have a formal agreement in place. And that their bank wouldn't allow them to wire the money unless there was a formal agreement in place. Now, this has nothing to do with GPG. But the point I'm making, Dr. Bob, is there was simply no documentation, no transition brief that would have indicated to anybody coming into this matter that, for example, this company had a contract with the government of Grenada to do a seismic survey of oil and gas. This is not a contract to plant a nutmeg tree. This is a contract to survey the entire territorial waters of Grenada, knowing that that data would be then sold or licensed to potential companies who are interested in exploring for oil and gas. So this is the kind of example of what we're dealing with. And yes, we still therefore feel very much so that there must be documents and other arrangements that may very well exist, whether it's specific to GPG or to other third parties, that we are yet to discover. So this is the challenge that we are facing. And one of the issues we are seeking to do by addressing it is to actually create a data room for the state of Grenada, both physically and electronically, so that persons who treat with us will be going to a specific location in which they can review our data, and more importantly for the citizens and the government and people of Grenada going forward, that there will be a clear data set that exists, that is verifiable, and that anybody who or successors will have access to it and not have to go searching around the world to try and find out what are the pertinent documents that obtains the oil and gas industry.
You know, Dr. Bob, if I may just add one point to what Prime Minister is saying, which is, I mean, so absolutely on point. You know, we spent about 2 years arguing and debating with GPG about whether or not they should be talking to us. They refuse to talk to the TWG, by the way. They do not speak to the technical working group. Their position is the technical working group has no legal status, that they're not talking to the technical working group, that the only person they want to talk to is the minister responsible for petroleum. And that as far as they're concerned, nobody is the minister responsible for petroleum. Even though the cabinet sent a message, wrote to them through the Attorney General saying, look, all correspondence concerning your matter should come to the Attorney General. They refused. 2 years it took. They just keep writing, you know, we don't know who the Minister of the Petroleum is. So you can't be doing that and at the same time saying that we did not put a system in place for you to develop the oil and gas. Yeah? In other words, I make the point again. If you make an investment and you're looking for a return and you realize that, you know, they say, okay, you're supposed to deal with John, but Jane is here and Jane is willing to deal with you, and John and Jane are basically the same persons. What is preventing you from working with Jane in order to advance your business and financial goals? Why is it that it took 2 years for them to say, we're not talking to this and we're not talking to that? Yeah? So I would want to suggest, Dr. Bob, that you have to ask these gentlemen some very hard questions. Yeah? Some very hard questions, because we did not get a sense of openness, of transparency, of a presence of goodwill and mutual trust in the engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. In the interest of time, we've gone past the 10 o'clock mark. I know, Hamlet, you had a question, and now, Grenada, you had a question, or did we answer it? All right. And I see Kalistra, Ms. Faria has a question, so we'll take Hamlet for the final question.
In the interest of time, I'd ask Mr. Burke for a long-form interview. We could do it, an interview. We could do it sometime. That's all right.
Great. No problem. So,
Yeah?
Ms. Faria, you have a question? We could take your question at this time.
We asking now?
You had the same question, right? An interview?
Yes, the same question. The interview I've been asking you for the last year and a half. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Does the government, the state of Grenada, have a system in place in terms of the laws, the royalties, the tax rules, and all of that? Do we already have that system in place? And as we move forward with our oil ventures, do we need to do further amendments to the body of regulations and legislation that we have in place? Or is it adequate? Do we have it? Is it adequate?
The answer to the second question is yes. We need further amendments. That is, and the answer to the first question is, it is a work in progress. That is actually what is happening right now. We have drafted a model production sharing agreement. Yeah? Remember we spoke about this production sharing with the GPG. We've drafted a model production sharing agreement that pulls from 15 different international contracts, PSAs, the best terms and conditions that we saw. Yeah? So we have a model PSA. We have an economic model already prepared that basically says what the cost recovery is expected to be like, what the royalties are expected to be like, what the taxes are expected to be like, and what the revenue streams are likely to be for the government. We've met with the Inland Revenue Department, we've met with the GIDC, we've met with the customs, we've met with the procurement unit. They're all part and parcel of this engagement at the moment. We just, in fact, we sent those in last week. The revised regulations, yeah? They're not yet passed, but we've prepared them and sent those in last week. The revised regulations to the Act itself. So you have the Petroleum and Natural Deposits Act, and we have regulations that will support how that is going to be done. Yeah. At the moment, Prime Minister spoke about the virtual data room, yeah, and the physical data room where companies can come and see, because we've done a complete analysis of Grenada's commerciality, Grenada's commercial prospects. We gathered all the information from the seismic company that he spoke about. We gathered from that company. We gathered from a second company. We entered into an arrangement with Trinidad that all of the seismic data that they had that was close to the Grenada border, they gave it to us. So we used those 3 sets of information to prepare a regional picture. And after that it was done, we did what is called an analog study. So the team that is working on it looked then at the geological profile of other parts of the world and draw some conclusions about what Grenada's situation is like. So the work is well underway, and we've spoken with about 6 different companies already. Yeah, Exxon, Chevron, Total, Shell, BP. All of these companies we've met and engaged already, and are in discussions with at the moment. Our aim really is to try and be completely ready to enter into contracts by June of next year. That is our target date at the moment.
And we are sure we will be able to untie these knots that. Are we sure we will be able to untie these knots that we seem to be entangled with GPG by that time? Okay. Well, what they will. I see a legal fight going forward. Now, my next question, sir, is the $19 million that GPG claims that they paid to the state of Grenada. When you went looking in our financial records, did you find it?
Not yet, unfortunately. Not yet, but I don't want to say it did not happen, because we saw a document where an official of government says it happened. But we have not seen Treasury documentation or documentation at the level of accounting to say that it happened.
Do we have dates that will give us a more, a more targeted search, a specific?
But a search is underway. A search is being conducted at the moment.
But that official government,
I'm sorry?
That official government,
yeah, well, a search is underway. A search is underway. I'm not saying it did not happen, but a search is underway. Just to confirm. With government accounts, you have to be very careful, you know. The good thing is that it's usually well documented. It may take a long time to happen, but it's usually well documented. So we will find it.
You will, if it was.
If it exists, we will find it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I would like to open the floor to the Attorney General. There was a question targeted to you, so I will give you that opportunity now to respond and to make closing statements, and then we close off for today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Press Secretary, and let me say good morning to Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Burke, all of you, my good friends in the media, in the room here, and those online, and of course the general viewing and listening public. Someone would have to refresh my memory on the question. Oh, right. So, under the production sharing agreement that was signed with GPG, Article 27 provides for possible arbitration in the event that has happened. That is the termination of the production sharing agreement itself. Arbitration may ensue, and we expect that perhaps that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Any? No, we have not. We have not. Well, we don't see that there is anything in particular in that letter that warrants a response. I say that because the substantive matters, for example, the 14 or so breaches that we have identified in the production sharing agreement and communicated with GPG, they have not made any substantive responses. Is my mic on? I think it went off. Yeah, so they have not made any substantive response to the breaches that we have identified in the production sharing agreement, and there are about 14 of them, and in the development license. So the matters raised in the letter of Monday or yesterday speaks to procedural matters, with which of course we disagree. So we don't think it warrants much of a response. Sure.
The correspondence from GPG, it seems to state that the government bypassed the dispute resolution provisions and just went directly to dissolving the agreement without recourse to them. Could you just explain if that's what happened, if that is how the agreement is laid out?
No, that's not what happened. That's their view, and as I said, we disagree with that. Article 27 of the production sharing agreement refers to early termination for breach of contract. So that article enables the government to terminate the agreement in the manner that we did for breach of contract. And as I said, there were 14 breaches or thereabouts that we identified that GPG had committed in relation to the production sharing agreement that caused us to trigger Article 27.
If they're arguing that the PSA remains in force because of those articles, they'll move, I guess, legally to
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't that put a damp on, I mean, do you have to wait for the outcome of that whole process?
No, it doesn't put a damper, because we are clear that as things stand now, the agreements stand terminated. The production sharing agreement provides that where arbitration is triggered, then there is a stay on the actual termination, but no arbitration has been triggered. So far,
they cannot do that after the fact, so to speak, no? The arbitration part, because they talk about arbitration, so they'll go to arbitration.
they would determine whether they proceed to arbitration or not. But as Prime Minister say, one form of dispute resolution settlement is for the parties to engage in talks, and Prime Minister said in his remarks here that we are always and still open to discussion. But under the agreement, GPG now has the option to commence arbitration proceedings.
Yes, I hear that, but I'm talking about not even GPG and so, but other interested parties.
Oh, no, that will not stop other interested parties from treating with Grenada. And I would also like to point out here that Grenada's territorial waters comprise 44 blocks. GPG only let me correct myself, GPG only had a license over 4 of those blocks. So the other 40 we can do business with because they had nothing to do with GPG. So if there are any reservations on the part of potential investors, that will only apply to 4 blocks. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Would you like to make some closing statements? Thank you. We invite you at this time.
I thank Mr. Book for the extensive information he's provided in response to the questions, and I think his responses demonstrate his intimate and complex knowledge both of the history of the matter as well as the way forward. And I also thank the Attorney General for a response in relation to the potential way in which this matter could develop, whether it's via arbitration or otherwise. I just want to emphasize this point. Arbitration is just one method of resolving an impasse or a dispute. It is still perfectly open to the government of Grenada and GPG to sit down, settle this matter. Now, Mr. Book has given you some insight into, from our perspective, the prior attitude of GPG in relation to the government of Grenada. Now, when the cabinet of Grenada appoints a committee of distinguished Grenadians to treat with a subject matter, and you are formally notified of that fact by the Attorney General of Grenada, and you write back to the state of Grenada to say, you are not talking to this person or that person, you're backing up a wrong tree, especially if I'm the Prime Minister of the country. So we need to be clear to our partners. The government of Grenada is elected by the people of Grenada, and the government of Grenada are entrusted as stewards with managing the natural resources of the people of Grenada. So when the cabinet of the government of Grenada tells you these are the persons appointed by the cabinet and you need to treat with them, you come to the meetings. You respond to the requests to meet. So I'm happy that there is some alacrity now being shown on the part of GPG to respond. So arbitration is just one route. If that's the route they choose, we obviously will comply with our bargain. It is perfectly still open for them to sit with us, for us to talk, to amicably part ways, for them to demonstrate that they have credible partners who can do what they are contractually obligated to do. Mr. Booker has given simple examples. 2 wells should have been drilled by 2017, I think. That's long before people like me were even contemplating being involved in public life. Long before. Right? They didn't do it. They claim their commercial deposits, according to Dr. Bob. Well, show us. I'm sure if there were commercial deposits, the partners the companies, the oil companies that were mentioned, who are very good at deep sea offshore drilling, would be happy to look for it. Let's make no mistake. Energy and the need for energy is growing at a phenomenal rate. The impact of artificial intelligence and its voracious appetite for energy is being felt by everyone. The wars that are taking place all over the world has severely impacted our ability to get cheap fuel. It's the reason why electricity bills are so high. So if there are commercial quantities of oil and gas in our waters, trust me, when meeting government officials, right? We're in that situation in the Caribbean, but we deserve a little respect, a little modicum of decency. So it tells you the mindset of people. So this is not a joke anymore. We have waited, we've reviewed, we've sought to engage, and I think anybody who knows my style would recognize that we attempt to be conciliatory first. We attempt to discuss, to settle, and to agree to move forward first. But we are not going to wait another 18 years. And therefore, we certainly welcome the opportunity if they wish to be earnest brokers. The government and people of Grenada are earnest brokers. But the message has to be sent clearly, and I think this is important. Our oil and gas industry is not GPG. And it is not the 4 blocks that we are treating with. There's a lot more territory, and a lot of, in fact, all of the work that is being done is to develop the regulatory framework, the economic investment model, the incentives model, the investment in our human capacity, because you'll appreciate, as we don't have yet an oil and gas industry, there are very few Grenadians who have the experience or expertise. And that is another issue we are also seeking to begin to address by giving young Grenadians the opportunity to study in those areas and to partner with other companies that will give them opportunities for apprenticeship, for learning experience, etc. So this is about the oil and gas industry. This 18-year saga is just a footnote in that journey. And so we have to think of the bigger picture and what's in the best interest of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. But we are confident that we have received solid legal and technical advice on this matter. We have, and I will say this, left to me, I probably would have taken this decision from the time I entered into office. But as I said, I don't counsel myself. I sought counsel from older, wiser people, far more experienced in this matter, and we stayed our hands and we ensured that we followed the process. We gave an opportunity for GPG to engage. We gave them the notices, etc., etc. So this is not a hastily ill-conceived decision that we've rushed to. And importantly, the fact that we're here telling you about it is a sign of our commitment to transparency on this issue. And as I said, we will certainly be briefing the Parliament on this issue, and I am mandating Mr. Book and his team to, as far as is legally responsible, to share any and all requests for information that they can with the public and with members of the media. So the long-form interviews that have been requested, I'm sure once the carnival period is over, Mr. Book and his other experts will make themselves available to sit down with the journalists and other members of the media to answer those questions. I conclude by re-emphasizing this is a matter of national importance that transcends sectoral or political divide. No matter what happens, oil and gas is a long-term national development issue. And it's unlikely that people like me or Mr. Book or even some of us sitting in this room may benefit from this. But we owe it to the next generation of Grenadians to make sure we do everything possible to allow them to benefit if, in fact, there are commercial quantities of oil and gas that partners would wish to invest with us and take out of the ground for the benefit of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. So thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And I would like, on behalf of the Office of the Prime Minister, to take this opportunity to wish all of you a safe and enjoyable carnival. Be responsible and remember to stay hydrated. And again, thank you to our media fraternity for joining us. Right, and this afternoon we are pleased to announce that we'll be signing a collective bargaining agreement with the Public Workers Union, so you are also invited to join us for that at 4 o'clock at the Parliament Building Conference Room. So that's one announcement. So have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody, and be safe once again in Juve. Somebody said Juve today, so be safe and have a safe carnival. Thank you.